directly to
Do you mind if I go
dispose
downstairs
one.
here?
Okay, and some of you may wonder, okay, why do I have some different model?
Oh, yeah,
I haven't talked
yeah.
about it before, right? Because one thing to check whether your model is correct or not is to check about the number of pass and number of fail. It should be about 80-20, right? And normally, if you just run the model, right, until finish, you can also check the number of pass and fail by looking at the animation, right? However, if you run more than one replication, then that's not possible, okay? So one of the model that you can use if you like, okay, is the model called record, okay? So if you open your Arena, okay, and go to the project bar and then basic process, okay, you will see one module that is called record module. Okay, and as the name suggests, it's just their job is to record some information. So we can use the record model to count the number of entities that pass through the record model, so that we know how many entity or how many pass actually pass the inspection and how many fail. Okay, so if you have your computer on, then you can take a look at the record model. Okay, and open it up. It doesn't really have anything much, but it just asks you like, okay, you can add the statistic definition. So it's kind of adding something that you want to calculate statistic of. Okay, so we click add, and you will see that normally the first one, the default that come out is count. Count means that it's just counting the number of entities that pass through this record model. And for each one, if we leave it at 1, so the counting is just 1 at a time. And the value will be 1. So one entity pass, it will be 1. Second one pass, now it's 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1, and so on. So that's what happened. Okay, so you don't have to do that. You can just take a look. So what I did is I just add the counter. Okay, so I add count, and I just count. You can specify the counter name. So I just specify as pass, and then the other one as fail, so that when it report in the show the result in the report, I can easily see which one it is. Okay. So once I do this, okay, anything that the entity that passed through this model, it will count. And also for this one, it will count. Okay, and once I run the model and finish the run, I go to the report. Okay, category overview report. If you look at yours, okay, if you look at yours, usually have entity, process, queue, and resource, but it will not have user specified. Okay, the first 4 is the default report, but the last one, user specified, is for any type of statistic that you just manually specified it. Okay, like the counter that I just did. Okay, so if I click on that, okay, there's a counter. And you can see that now it adds another thing, user specified and counter. Okay, and there are 2 types of count that I did, fail and pass. So it will give you the information about the number of fail and pass. Okay, so you can add that if you like. Okay, in order to just counting the number of the entity that passed through your process. That makes sense for everybody? But if you haven't done that in the homework, that's fine. Okay, I didn't really require you to do that. But just for you to know that there's something that can help you to do the counting. Okay?
I wouldn't mind eating this.
I think this one we talked about it before. Everybody should get the same result, right? For the first replication run, and then the second and so on. Okay, if your model is the same, you get the same result. This is due to the Arena policy that they do fixed random seed. So every replication, okay, will have the same random seed, regardless of the computer that you use. Okay, so this one is easier for us to compare the result. But for the statistic, we're gonna have to choose the right statistic to appropriately do the calculation, which I'll tell you later when we use it for results analysis. Okay, and as you can see, when you make any type of modification, the output of the model will change, right? However, this time it's just only one replication, so definitely it's gonna change because of the randomness, okay? But in real life, sometimes you make changes to the model, okay, and you see that the results changing. It doesn't guarantee that it changed because of your action. It's just because of the randomness. So that's why we need statistics to confirm whether the change is actually from the change in the model or just the randomness. Okay, so we'll do that in the results analysis. Okay, just one thing for you to see. Some of you might notice. Okay, some of you probably take a look at the number in and number out in the process. You guys take a look at that? Some of you might do. If not, that's fine. But just want to show you that because of the randomness, okay? Number in for each model. So I did the base model, and then when I add watching and inspection, and then when I do the loop. Okay, so I just compare three things. Okay, and you can see that obviously the output is different, but also take note that the number in is also different. Okay, 90, 82, and 104. So it's all different. The reason is because because of the randomness. Okay, because when you run the model and you make some changes to the model, the random seed is still the same, right? But that particular random number may be used for something else. Okay, because you have other things to add on to do the simulation. Okay, so just keep in mind that when you want to compare the performance of the model in terms of the output or the throughput that you can calculate or you can generate, I think it will be better to compare in terms of the effectiveness. Okay, so compare by looking at the input also. So output divided by the input, you will know exactly how many % of the effectiveness of your model. And you can see that when you add watching and inspection, that's more activity. So the number of parts that we can process will be less. Okay, so it's actually, yeah, we can see that it's 89 to 76, but actually you can see that this is coming from 90 to 89, so it's about 99% effectiveness, but this one is only 93. Okay, and it's scary because if you take a look at the loop model and the second model, you will see that the number out is 76 and 73. It seems pretty close, but in fact it's not. Because with the loop, you have about 104 entity or part coming into the model, and only 73 is complete. So the effectiveness is only 70%. Okay, so just be careful when you want to see whether the model is effective or can process a lot of output or not. Just make sure that you compare against the input also. Okay, that will be safer because we cannot control the number of input. That makes sense? Okay, and this one I'm just showing you that, okay, I'm doing the count for pass and fail. And it's pretty close to 80%, so we can think that our model should be correct to a certain level. Okay. Another thing that I would like you guys to probably take note of that is that we add the watching center, and the watching center has the same delay distribution as the drilling center. So you will see that when you take a look at the Q, okay, the Q at the watching center, it will be less than the Q at the drilling center. Why? Because the part that come out from the drilling center pretty much matching with the watching center delay time, right? Because we use the same, but the part that coming to the drilling center, it follow different distribution, which is faster, okay? But we still have the Q. Why? Because both time for drilling center and the watching center, it follow the distribution. It's not constant. If it's constant, then you will not have any Q. But this one is not. So, but at the end, you'll see that it has less Q. Sorry, because at the end, the time is pretty much the same.
Zoom. I think without 2 6, huh? I think I know what your password is. It's very, very long, so I just guess it's just on there. Correct? Yeah, yeah, look at that. It must be, oh no, it's not long enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so about the design module.
And, I'll get some water. Some refill.
Okay, for the design module, okay, 80% pass. I think everybody should be okay with that. Right? So we can just use the two-way by chance. And as I mentioned earlier, you can use the design module to do the verification purpose by taking a look at the number of entities that go to pass and go to fail. So if about 80-20%, then that should be okay. That's kind of similar to what we did in the lab number 3, that we say only the woman can go down to the document check. Okay, so we can just look at animation and see whether it's correct or not. Okay, and only the men that can bypass document check and go to gate. Okay, other thing, how to count the pass and fail. We already talked about that. You can use the module record. Keyword washing and drilling, we already talked about that, right? Because the entity that go to the washing center will kind of follow the same type of delay distribution as the washing. That's why the keyword washing center is smaller. This one, okay, some of the students in the past mentioned this, and I think it's worth mentioning, is that if I ask everybody, what will be the bottleneck what is the bottleneck in the process? What activity is the bottleneck in the process?
Inspection.
Inspection, very good. And actually, you don't really have to do the model. Just looking at the number, you can tell. Because inspection has the constant of 5. The rest, triangular with minimum of 1, most likely 3, and maximum of 6. So on average, you know that the inspection will take longer. Okay, so everybody get that one. But the interesting thing is some students mentioned that related to the fact that the inspection process has the constant time. That's why it's become bottleneck. That's not really true, right? Because if the inspection has the constant of 2 minutes, it will not be bottleneck at all. Okay, so just be careful that it doesn't mean that if you have constant time, it will become bottleneck. It's actually the time that happens. So you can look at it on average, how long does it take? That will give you some idea whether that process is the bottleneck or not. Okay. Okay. Some of you may mention that in your work. I hope that it probably doesn't really make sense that much. That when you have the part that fell before, when we do the loop, the parts that fell before will go right back to the washing process and go back to the inspection. And it has the same probability of failing again, right? Some of you may say that, well, if it fell before, should it still have 20% rate of failure? Or should it be lower? Or it shouldn't fail at all because we already correct the problem. Okay? So with this, if you feel that the process doesn't make sense, then this is the time that if you want to try, you can change the model and see how this impacts. Okay? I'll show you later about it. So I'll try that too and see what will happen. Okay? Okay, replication length. Well, for this one, it's just we already specify for you how long we want you to run. However, you will see that at the beginning, this model is designed to run only 20 minutes. It doesn't really give you any information. When you run longer, that will start to give you some more information about the actual behavior. But normally, when you decide on the replication length, okay, just sometimes we use the time that the shop or the facility is actually open. So like the working time can be the replication length. Okay, depending on our purpose. Okay. Some of you may notice when you start doing the loop, okay, the last model, the queue is building up. Okay, and if you run even longer, the queue will start to build up even more. The problem of this model is that the inspection just cannot handle. Okay, so the longer you run, the more queue you will see because basically the system cannot handle. Okay, so this means that if you run longer replication, but the system is fine, it still be able to handle the work, you will not see the queue building up. You will only see the queue building up when the process cannot handle the entity that's coming in. And with the loop, the reason is that without loop, you already have problem because inspection take longer. And with the loop, another 20% also going back. So it's add up to more and more entity coming to the inspection. Okay. Some of you may think that, well, if you want to improve the process, right, what can you do? Some of you might say, well, if we can reduce the inspection time from 5 to 4 minutes, would that be helpful? Okay, in simulation, you can see that you can easily just change the number, right, and try and run and see what will happen. Okay, but just for this one, if you recommend like changing the time, reducing the time to do something in practical, okay, or in real life, you have to be able to say how you're going to do it. Like you provide more training, or like you have some more like new equipment that can help, something like that. You cannot just say that, okay, we just reduce the time, right? It's just not possible. Okay, but with simulation, yes, you can test anything that you like. Okay, so let me show you a little bit more about the model. Okay, so it's basically we doing the loop, right? So the entity coming back to the watching center and inspection. And you can see that, run the model a little bit. Okay, so I'm doing 480. We do the local one. Oh, sorry. Okay, if we do 960, right? It's just going more and more and more and more. But actually, it might start to get this approach to the steady state that we have about 40 something queue at all time. Okay, hopefully you see that. Okay, one thing just to show you, you don't have to be able to do that, but just for you to realize that it's possible, is that we can say that, well, for the part that failed, okay, and it has to looping back to watching center and inspection, and it will have the same percentage as pass and fail, 80, 20 again. It doesn't really make sense. Okay, we can actually specify something different. Okay, by letting the system know that the part that already failed one time, okay, it will have some, let's say some stamp or something on it, so that when it go back to the pass and fail again, it will not follow the same distribution. Okay, so this is one way to do that. Okay, let me show you how it works first. Okay, so what I did, I added something a little bit more. This assign modules, basically to stamp or make like, like saying that make the system know that this part has already failed one time. So once it failed one time, it will not fail again. Okay, this is my, I think this is my rule. If it failed once, it will not fail again. Okay, so, and I also change the entity picture so that I can easily spot whether the model worked correctly or not. So let's take a look at it first. Okay, so what I did is, for the part that fell, okay, I change the picture to the WAN, and then once it go back again, it will always go this way for the WAN. Okay, it will never go down to the pass and fail 80-20% anymore. So just saying that if it fell before, it will never fail. Okay, so just make it different. I mean, you can have another type of probability, that's fine. Okay, okay, just saying that it's 100%. So just to let you know that there are ways that we can specify or differentiate entity that go through something. Okay, so this one is basically the entity that go through fail here. It will flow through the counter, so we count the number of fail, and then we use the assign module to change the entity picture to the WAN, so that we can easily spot whether it's correct, the movement is correct or not. Okay, beside that, I also put one attribute on that entity. So I have the attribute called fail. Okay, at step 1. So at this module, basically, what I do is I check the attribute fail. If it has value of 1, that means it's already failed before, so that's true, it will pass. But if it doesn't have the fail attribute, because it never go through this assign module before, then it will follow the original pass fail probability. That makes sense? So what I did is, okay, the pass, this one, 80-20, right? 80, nothing, but 20, fault, that go down here. Okay, we have the counter, right? Count the number of fail. And then we add the module called assign. Again, this module can be found in basic process template. Okay, you can take a look at that basic process template, and it will have the module called assign. Okay, and it's just the assignment, so you can assign. It's basically like you ask, if the entity passed through this module, you can do something on it. Okay. And what I did, okay, so I have two assignments, two things to do with the entity that passed through this module. The first one is to change the entity picture. So I can just say, okay, entity picture will change to picture.WAN, so that I have the WAN picture. Okay. And the other one is I use I stamp the attribute. I just create a new attribute. Remember, that's a local variable for the entity, right? So I create the attribute called fail and has the value of 1. This is just to stamp on the entity, so that when my entity, this one, go back, okay, follow to and come to here. Okay, this one asks whether the entity failed before. So I check the attribute name fail. If it has value of 1, then yes, it's failed before, so it will pass. Okay, but if it no, then it will go down to the 80-20 passing rate that we had before. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. Okay, just for you to know, not really required to be able to do that, but just for you to realize that there are ways that we can manipulate the model, okay, in the way that we want. Okay, so you don't have to do like everything that really spread. But if it has something that you can specify more, give some more information to the entity, we can do that. Okay, All right. Do you guys have any question? Yes.
If you go to the process of the watching center,
Washing?
yes.
Okay.
What is the priority?
The priority here.
Yes.
I use the same medium. The reason is that because the resource that we use, okay, in washing, the resource that we use is washer, right? And in drilling center, the resource that we use is drill press. So it's different resource anyway. So it doesn't matter. So we give it the medium so that it's the default, but because we will talk about priority when we talk about set, but right now you can leave it at medium. Okay, the priority will become important when you have different process that share the same resource. That makes sense. For example, if you have the drilling and washing center use the same resource. In this case, when the two center call for the resource at the same time, the model has to decide which one should get the resource. If you put high priority in watching center, in that case, watching center will get the resource first. Okay, good question, but you only need it when you share the resource among different models. Okay, all right. Do you guys have any other question? Okay, good. I hope it's not that hard. I mean, just take some time to get yourself familiar with the model and try to make some changes. Okay. So if you don't have any question, then you can still hang on your report. You can submit it during the break. Okay, and then I'll correct it during the weekend so that if I have more feedback based on your work, then I'll go through it again next week. Okay. All right. If you don't have any question about homework number 3, I think today we're gonna have to do some lecture today, okay? Because I think it's time for us to start talking about the data collection and input analysis, right? Because right now you already given the distribution to use in the model. Right, even for adding the watching center or the inspection, we always give you whether it's constant or the triangular and whatsoever. So today, we will talk about how we get the data and how we convert it to the distribution that we use in the model. Okay, so I'll just briefly go through the introduction about data collection and input analysis. And then we'll go through the data collection briefly, because I think we mentioned about it before. And the more important thing today that we will talk about is related to how we're going to fit distribution to the data. When we say fitting distribution to the data, mean that you have the raw data that you collect from the field, and now we're going to convert it to the distribution that we will use in the model. Okay? The distribution and also the parameter associated with it. Then we're going to talk briefly about some caution or something that you have to be careful if you want to use normal distribution. As we know, normal distribution is has infinite tail, so it's possible that will have very extreme value, even though it's very rare to happen. But if it happens, it can impact your model. Okay, and then we will end our discussion with the non-stationary arrival process. Okay, so in general, when we talk about arrival process, in when the arrival time that the entity will come into the system, right? And in general, usually the time that the rate that the entity will come into the system is pretty much the same, regardless of the time during the model. But sometimes you may face with the situation that there are some seasonality. Just think of seasonality, I think it would be easier. For example, if you open a coffee shop or a restaurant, the rate that the customer will come to your place will be different depending on the time, right? If it's a coffee shop, probably in the morning, you have many customers coming in. But during the afternoon, maybe less.
Mm.
For the restaurant, during lunch, you have more customer coming in. So comparing to the time in the late afternoon. So that called non-stationary arrival process because it's not the same across time. And for arena, we have the way to handle that. Okay, so that means when you collect the data, just collect as what it is, and if it's non-stationary, don't worry about it. There's a way to model it. Okay, so for the input analysis, the idea is to specify model parameter and the distribution. Okay, and you can see that what we have done so far is more on structural model, which means that we think about the logical aspect. We think about what will be entity, what will be resource, the path that the entity will go through. Okay, so that kind of similar to when you drag all the model, the yellow model, and then construct the model, right? But after you're done with that, you still have to go into each model and start specifying the numerical parameter in there. Okay, so input analysis related to what sometimes we call it quantitative modeling. Okay, so you specify the number, specify the distribution. Okay, and to be able to do that, you have to observe the system and collect the data. Okay, and then convert that to the corresponding input, which is the distribution to put in the model. So today we'll focus on that. Okay, and for the input, just keep in mind that in the model, there are usually two types of input: deterministic and random. Deterministic means that the number is fixed. Okay, it's a constant value. Usually, number of units of a resource is constant, right? Entity transfer time, processing time, may or may not. I mean, if you have let's say the automatic machine that process with the same time all the time, then that could be constant. Sometimes not. Okay, the majority is the processing time is usually not constant. Okay, and for the random or stochastic, this one is not constant, right? So when we model it, we model as a distribution. That's why you see we put normal distribution with the mean and standard deviation. We put uniform with minimum and maximum parameter. So that's what you did when you specify the distribution in the model. And when the model runs, okay, it would draw the random number, okay, and then simulate the value out of that distribution, okay, to give you the time or the interval time, the processing time. So what we have to be able to specify is what will be the distribution and what will be the parameter. So that's what's going to be the focus of how we do input analysis. Okay, and when we put the distribution as an input in the model, the result or the output will become random too. Okay, that's why you have to run more than one replication. Okay, not just assume no randomness because that you will have problem with the validity. Okay, one thing for you guys to think about. Last time we do the scheduling. Right? We do the scheduling for the resource. At the beginning, we say that the resource is fixed, the agent. There are 5 agents at all times. That's the constant for sure, right? And then we say that, well, what if we try to have different number of resources at different time? First 2 hours, we have 3 resources. 4 hours, after that, we have 5, and so on. Okay? So that one, okay, the number of resources that we're talking about in the scheduling, is it deterministic or is it random? What do you guys think? Deterministic or random? Do we know exactly what's going to be at certain time? Actually, we do, right? Because the first 2 hours, we will have only 3. The next 4 hours, we will have 4, right? And so on. So actually, it's still deterministic, right? Because you know exactly what will be the number. Okay, it's just that you schedule the number to be different at each time period. But if it's random, you have no idea what number the simulation is gonna simulate. Okay. Okay, collecting the data, we talked about it before, so I'll try to go briefly about it. Okay, as we know, it's hard, it's taking time. and could be expensive and boring for sure. Okay, just sitting there and observing the system, collecting the data. Sometimes you may have the problem that the system might not exist. For example, you want to design a new process or new facility. You don't have that system yet. In that case, what should you do? You have something similar, you can take a look at it, right? That's kind of the same idea as you trying to forecast the demand for your product, and you don't have that product yet. So you may take a look at your competitor, the one that's similar to you, to use that as a reference, okay? Or sometimes you have the data available, which means that some company already collect the data, so you can take a look at the secondary data, okay? But the data that they have might not be the one you want, so you have to be careful about that. I think now, in the past, the problem that people face is that they don't have the data. It's difficult to collect the data. Now, we have a lot of data. Company collect all the data, but sometimes they just collect it. They don't really have the purpose. So when you try to use it, you might find that it's not really correct or it's not really appropriate. One example that's always happened. So let's say you're gonna model the call center system. Okay. Normally, when customer call, the system will start the time. So it collect the time that the customer called, and then the time that the customer leave the call center, leave the system. Right? Seem to be okay. So we know when the customer comes, we know how long customers spend on the phone with us. However, the problem with this collection is that you cannot really separate the waiting time from the actual time that the customer talking with the person at the call center, right? Because when they call, yes, the system clock in the time, but sometimes they don't get right to the the representative yet, so they have to wait in line, and then when they talk to the representative, then they're done, right? But when we do the modeling, okay, if you remember, we never put the queue time in the system, right? All we say is, okay, how often or the arrival time that customer come, and then the processing time. The queue will be generated by the system, okay? So if you collect the data like that, and you put in, you cannot separate between the queue and the actual valuable time. So what should you do? So you may go back and observe the system more, right, and see how long it should take for the customer to actually process with the sales representative. So with that, with some of the information, now you will be able to kind of separate the information that you have. And sometimes we may have problem with the incomplete data or too much data. Okay, again, too much data, they collect with no reason. So you're gonna have to kind of separate them and see whether it's worthwhile. It's good for you to use or not. Okay, for data collection question, this one we go through it before. Okay, so first of all, you have to know what data or what information you're trying to collect, right? So macro data, that's more structural. Okay, so identify entity, resource, the location, the flow, operational logic that you have, the routing and the scheduling. Okay, that one is more for like having the structure of the model. And then you do the micro or numerical data. This one is to specify the parameter in the model. Okay, capacity, that's in terms of the resource, how many you have, would be the constant number. Okay, the probability for arrival, the processing time, the routing probability, and so on. Okay, and the source of the data that you should be used, so source of information, how you obtain that, So basically, you can use historical data or the secondary data. If it's available, use it first. Okay, it will be easier. I use the system documentation. Okay, sometimes the system has like the SNOP, okay, standard operating procedure, and talking about the time that it takes at each process. So you can use that. But if you use system documentation, be sure to validate it with the actual processing time. Sometimes the system documentation is just a number that they put in. But when people actually do the process, they don't follow that, and it doesn't take the same time. Okay? If you don't have historical data, then do the personal observation. Okay, just sitting there, taking time, collect the data. Or if you cannot, or if it's not convenient, you can do personal interview. So just interview or asking the expert in the area, okay, about the time. So that will give you some information. Okay, but be careful when you do the interview. Don't just ask for average time or average number. Okay, remember to ask for minimum and maximum at least, so that you can see the variety in the process. Okay. If the process not exist, then you can use a similar system. Okay. Or sometimes, let's say that you're gonna add new machine to your process, right? You don't really know how effective your machine is. So in that case, you may use the vendor claim or design estimate, right? You're buying something and it say that, okay, the specification of this machine, how fast it can process the material. In that case, you can use design estimate for that. But normally, we're gonna factor down a little bit because the vendor claim or the design estimate is usually based on ideal situation, like the best situation that the machine can do. But in fact, when it's the actual thing, may not be the same. For example, just think about your cell phone or your laptop. One of the things that they usually advertise is about the battery life, right? How long that is gonna last. And you will see that on the advertisement or the design estimate is very long. However, that based on the ideal situation, they probably not turn on anything, right? But when we turn on different kind of software and connection, so it will have the battery life will be lesser. Okay, so just take that into account. And if you don't have anything else, the last resort that you can use is literature. So do the literature review sometime. Maybe you will have some people that do the estimation or do the research on this and give you the information about the effectiveness or the time to process something. So you can use that. Okay. And then once you know how you're going to get the data, the last one is how to best document the data that you collect. If you collect the data, okay, how are you going to put it in Excel or what? Okay, and you will see that when we're going to use the input analyzer in Arena to fit the distribution for us, there's a way that we can prepare the file for them so that you know how should you collect or preserve the data in the format that you can use further. Okay? Everybody okay with this? Do you have any question? Okay. So some of the guidelines. Okay. Collect the data. Yes, key factor, something that is important for you. Don't just collect everything. Okay. Isolate actual activity time and the wait time. Talking about that already. This one is very important. Because when we do the modeling, we will put in only the activity time, not the waiting time. The waiting time will be simulated. Okay, the waiting time will be calculated based on the system. It's the performance of the system. Okay, it's the output, not the input. Triggering event, just for something, sometimes things occur just because there are something that inject to the system. Okay, it's not normal. Okay, so that would be possible. For example, you simulate the demand, and suddenly you have the promotion at this time period. So that the demand go up and then go down again to the normal. In this case, So we have to kind of identify, are there any triggering event that will make things happen? Okay? Sometimes we just have to inject that to the system according to the real time that we have in the actual. Okay? Consider common grouping. Okay? Sometimes when you take a look at the system, you may have a lot of entity, a lot of type of part or material. Okay? Consider grouping them together. Okay? Because if it take about the same time, same routing, and so on, you can group them as one type of entity. Okay? That will help you simplify the model. Okay? You don't have to separate everything. For example, let's say we're talking about the model for transportation, right? From loading, unloading the package, loading the package onto the truck, and then go out to serve customers. Okay, you may have, let's say, your product is the shampoo. Okay, the size the same, but the ingredient, okay, or the smell is different, the fragrance is different. In that case, it has nothing to do with the transportation, right? So that you can group them together. Okay, but if the entity or the part, okay, are traveling in different direction or using different time, in that case you cannot really group them. Okay, so just think about if it's possible, try to group them. If you cannot, then just model as it is. Okay, and then this one is very important. Separate between you have to understand between input and the response or performance of the system. Input is the one that we're gonna put in the model. Okay, that usually the delay time, the probability, the interarrival time that we will put into the model. The response or the performance, sometimes we call it RBP or reference behavior pattern. This is the output of the system, okay, the performance. So we will never put this information in the model, okay? It will be generated after the model is run, okay, using the input that we put in. For example, we're never going to say how many the total production that we have. The model will just give us that information. The cycle time, how long it takes to do something, the queue time, and the queue length. Okay, but why do we have to collect the response or the performance data? We collect that from the actual system so that we can compare the model results against it. That's called for model validation, right? How can you be sure that the model can replicate the reality? So what you do is you collect the performance of the system, showing the time, the queue, and so on. And then when you finish running the model, you check the report, seeing the time, the queue, and so on, so you can compare that back to the reference behavior pattern. If it's the same, then you can be sure that your model is correct. Sorry. So that you can pass the model validation.
Is there some way you don't have to do that manually? Is there some way you don't have to do that manually? What's this for? You still? It's what? She likes cats? Rats? Can't wait to see what animal I get for my birthday. Huh? Oh, you wanna know? Like next week or something?
What?
Next month? Not sure. 9th of March. I think we have an exam that day. March 9th. Nice. Oh my god. Her and I should have a joint birthday party. How old is she? Oh, 40th. Knuckle sandwich. What's going on here? Oh, you see that stupid boat that's landing in Sihanoukville? There's a boat full of coronavirus Americans. It's landed in Sihanoukville, Cambodia. I have to go to Sihanoukville next week.
But you know, like, I feel so sorry about this. Like, you know, people who is not they're gonna get infected, so they stay.
What, in the boat?
Yeah,
What about the people in Sihanoukville?
no, but I'm sure they're taking precautions.
Oh my god, my wife is obsessed with this stupid guy. Wait.
I'm sure he's doing it.
Who is this? Chinese guy?
Yeah. If she,
I hate this guy so much. I can tell from this stupid picture.
if she watches this,
Yeah.
So when we have the data, right, you already collect the data. There are two ways that you can use in the model. The first one is because you use data directly in simulation, which means that you just, let's say you collect 100 data point, and then when your model run, it just read from that data point that you collect. Okay, so the good thing about this is that you can be sure that all value is realistic because you see that in the real system before. Okay, but the problem is you just spend some time collecting the sample of the data, so you're not really sure that there may be other data, right? So when you use directly, you can only get what you have, and that's it. And if you're gonna run model longer than, let's say you need more than 100 data point, then you don't have enough, and you're probably gonna have to recycle it. So it not really reflect the real system. Okay, so normally we don't really use data directly in the simulation that much because of the limitation, right? Because think about it, when you're gonna collect the data, you might say, okay, your factory run every day, but you're just gonna collect only on Friday or only at certain time. So how can you be sure that it can represent the value that you collect will represent all the value that can happen? Okay, and the last one that they say computationally slow. I mean, right now it's not that slow anymore because the computer is much more powerful. Okay, but if you compare between reading the data and simulating the data is faster anyway. Okay? So the way that are more popular, and we usually use this one, is to fit the probability distribution to the data. So you collect the data, and then you try to figure out what will be the appropriate distribution and parameter for this data. So when you put in the model, you put in as the distribution and the parameter. When the model try to generate the data, they just do the simulate the random number and then simulate the data out of the distribution that you put in. Okay, so the good thing about it is that it can go beyond the observed data, right? Because you already know that, okay, this is a distribution. The observed data is falling within the distribution. So when you generate, it could be other number, okay? And in here, they kind of say that it could be good or be bad. Because the good thing is, if you cannot observe, you haven't observed that because of the data limitation, data collection limitation. Fitting distribution is better because it can generate the data that you didn't see. But it could be bad if it generates something that's extremely rare or unlikely to happen. Especially, let's say, in normal distribution, right? The tail is infinite. So it can generate some value that is very, very high that we will not likely to see in the real system, but that's possible. So sometimes that leads back to how you select the right distribution. Some of the distribution has infinite tail. Some of them are bounded, have the clear boundary. So you may choose that instead of infinite tail. Okay, I'll show you later about it. But the key is just to figure out what will be the right distribution. And that's the way that we can use in order to get the right distribution. And what we're going to do is we can use Arena Input Analyzer to help us with the distribution. It means that if you have the raw data, you can use it to help you figure out what is the most fitted distribution for your data. So let's take a look at this plot. This is a plot of interarrival time. And you can see that if you plot it like this, it doesn't really give you much information. You'll probably be able to say that there may be two groups of the entity that arrive that have the interarrival time around here, from 5 to 3, and then 3 to 5. But it doesn't really tell you what is the distribution of this data. When we want to see the distribution of the data, what we usually do is we usually use histogram. Remember histogram that we learned before? So histogram is a way that helps us to see the frequency, right, of the data. So that we usually, first when you have the raw data, try to do the histogram on it, so that you can see how the data is distributed, okay? And then if it's clear, then you probably be able to tell by your eye. But if not, then you can start to use the program to help you. Okay, besides Arena, there are other statistic programs that can help you fit the distribution. For example, StatFit. Okay, StatFit can help you do that too. There are several ones, but you use Arena because it comes in the simulation package anyway. When we try to fit distribution, okay, using Arena Input Analyzer, remember there are two types of the distribution. Okay, there are two types of the distribution. The first one is theoretical, and we see it all the time when we build a model. right? The theoretical distribution, like the triangular, normal distribution, uniform, and so on. So this is the theoretical distribution. So Arena will help you do that. And the other type of distribution is called empirical distribution. This one is like the probability distribution that we did in Monte Carlo simulation before. Basically, you just calculate the proportion of each of the value will happen, right? For example, remember when we simulate the demand, we say that the demand, let's say in 200 days, it happened, demand of 0 for 30 days, demand of 1 for 100 days, and so on. So with that, you can calculate the proportion, right? And calculate the probability of each value that will happen. However, when you simulate the demand, you will only get that value. If you have like demand from 0 to 5, it will only be 0 to 5, okay? But sometimes we use that too. And the way that we gonna write empirical distribution in Arena. So take a look. Okay, DISC is the expression. Okay, discrete probability. And then you have like in the parentheses, they would how you read is the number is in pair. So you can take a look at it like this. Okay, so it's 3 pair of the value. The first number is the cumulative probability. So you can see 0.2, that's 20%. 0.6, that's actually 40%. Because 60 is the cumulative probability. And then 1, that's another 40%. Okay, so that's the first value is the cumulative probability. And the second value is the value that will occur. So from this, we can say that 20% of the value will be 1. 40% of the value will be 2. And another 40% of the value will be 3. So all you generate is only number 1, 2, or 3 based on the probability. That makes sense? That's the discrete probability. Okay? So this is what we did in Monte Carlo simulation. A lot of time that we have to do the lookup, remember? So that what happened. And another thing when you, that will be like the, kind of like the scientific way that you can use to evaluate the distribution, whether it's fit or not. But a lot of time, beside that, we can also use some creative idea to decide which one is better. But sometimes it won't meet the scientific way, but because the character of the distribution is different, so you can choose different one. One thing that you have to always keep in mind when you choose the distribution is that whether it's the continuous or discrete data. Okay, the data that you want to simulate, is it continuous or is it discrete? If it's continuous, means that the value can be any number. Okay, integer or decimal point, that's fine. But if it's a discrete data, the value can only be integer number. Okay, and some of the distribution is for discrete data, some is for continuous. So you can use that as one of the criteria when you choose the distribution. That makes sense for everybody? Okay, and we will learn, we will have the lab after this to try to input the information and use Arena Input Analyzer to fit the data. But before we go into that, just some of the issue when we try to fit the distribution. As I mentioned earlier, it's not an exact sign, so it doesn't really have the right answer, okay? But it has the way that you can consider when you're going to use the fit the distribution. There are 2 things to look at. The first one is mean square error. Okay, the smaller mean square error is it shows the benefit. That's kind of like when you do regression analysis, right? You have to fit the line to the data. right? A straight line to the data. And then it will give you the R square. That's kind of the same idea. You want mean square error to be small. And another thing that we'll take a look at is the p-value. Okay, in statistics, you probably remember we talk about p-value a lot. Okay, for us, just remember that if the p-value is less than 0.05, it means that it's not good, it's not fit. The p-value has to be at least equal to 0.05 or more. Okay, that will consider that the distribution fit the data. So we're looking for 0.05 or more. These are the two things that we usually look at when we compare the distribution. Okay, so I'll show you when we use ARENA to fit the data again. But just keep in mind that we look at mean square error and the p-value. For mean square error, the lower is better. For p-value, we want it to be 0.05 or more. Another thing when we look at the distribution, consider the range of distribution. Okay? For example, we talk about infinite and bounded distribution, right? Normal, infinite, both way. So you can have extremely low value, either the high value or the low value. But if you use bounded distribution, like beta distribution, uniform, triangular, the value will not fall outside the boundary. Okay? And some of the distribution will be positive, which means that it will give only the positive number, like exponential and gamma. All the value generated will be positive number. So you can keep that in mind when you choose the distribution also. If your data is always positive, so exponential or gamma might be a good idea, especially for interarrival time. Okay, interarrival time of the entity, we usually use exponential because it's always positive, and each number is independent from the others. You may also consider how easy it is to manipulate the parameter in the distribution. If you choose the distribution that you're familiar with, like uniform, exponential, normal, you know what parameter is, like the mean and the standard deviation. So you can easily manipulate if it takes longer time or shorter time. But some other distribution, sometimes the parameter is quite complex and we may not understand it well. So in that case, we may try to avoid using it. They will have like Y-wall distribution, beta distribution, gamma distribution, and so on. Okay. If you take a look at the mean square error, the p-value, and you have like, let's say, two distribution that you think are equally good, not sure which one you're going to choose. One way to do is just running the model with that distribution and compare the result. Which one give you better result in terms of the result is closer to the real system. For example, you have triangular and uniform. You're not sure which one you're going to choose. So you can just run the model with triangular and run the other one with uniform and see the result. So you can just do the straight comparison like that. Another thing to be careful is when you collect the data, please try to check the data, whether you have outlier or not. Okay? Because outlier, sometimes it may happen because you just record it wrong. So human mistake, that one you can just take it out. But sometimes there may be a reason why it happened. Okay, so try to dig that out, find out what happened. And sometimes it may be valid, but it happened just because there are something to trigger it. For example, at that time we have promotion, so the demand is the sale is higher than usual. So in that case, you may not want to include it in your model because it's not a usual situation, right? So you can just take it out and just model the demand or the sale as usual. And when you have the promotion, you inject that into the model and have others impact. So you can do that. Okay. Another type of the situation that you may find call it multimodal data. Okay, so usually if you don't plot your, the graph, you will not see it. So we recommend that yes, even though you collect the data and put it as the raw data table in Excel, it might be worthwhile to do the histogram on it so that you can see how the data behave. For example, if you take a look at this data, right, you will see that it's kind of show that there will be like 2 more, okay, the high point, okay, and the data doesn't seem to belong together, right? So if you try to fit the distribution for this whole data, you will never get anything. There's no way, right? So if you see something like this and you suspect that it might be like 2 different type of data, you may try to find a reason why it happened like this. For example, we might say that, okay, let's assume that this data is coming from the time that it takes for a customer to rent a car. Okay, so they want to rent a car, right? So, and if you find out more, you may find that this group of the people that take shorter time is because they already reserved the car. So everything goes very fast because you have all the information. And for this group, it may be that they haven't reserved the car yet, so they just walk in and try to figure out what they're going to do, right? So if you are sure and you can see the reason why the data are separated into 2 groups, then you can just separate them and then fit the distribution for each of them. That's fine. As long as you have the reason for it. Okay? Don't try to fit the 2 together. There's no way that you're going to be able to fit them together. Because there is no distribution like this. So it's impossible. Okay? So you can see that at the end, it's just like, okay, your observation, you take a look at the reason, try to find out why things happen. And if you feel like it doesn't belong together, try to find a reason, what makes it different. And then if you have valid reason for it, just separate them, okay? And then when you do the modeling, now you know, okay, if it's this group of customer, this is the distribution we will use. If it's this group of customer, you use another distribution. Okay. Sometimes it could happen. You don't have the data, so unfortunately, it happened more than you want. But if it happened, then there's not really any good solution, but you have some option to do. Okay. Normally, if you don't have data, just interview the expert. Okay, the expert in the area. Try to get at least minimum and maximum so that you can construct the uniform distribution. Okay. If you don't know anything, just minimum and maximum, you can just assume that all the value there is equal, has equal chance of happening. Or you can try to ask for more, the more. So if they have been maxed, then you ask like what is the most likely value or the time that it occurred. In that case, you can form the triangular distribution. Okay. For the inter-arrival time, if you don't have the information, you can assume using the exponential distribution. Okay. Exponential distribution is mostly used for inter-arrival time. Okay. But you still need to specify the value for B, but it's not that difficult. Okay, so you can do that. If you're going to simulate number of random events in an interval, then you can use Poisson distribution. This one we don't use it that much, but it's possible to use. Okay, for the case of non-stationary arrival process, remember, basically the idea of non-stationary arrival process is that the event or the arrival that occur, the rate are vary over time. So like you have big rush hour and the low hour, peak hour, something like that. So, or there are some seasonal happening. If it happens like that, then you're gonna have to model the simulation that including non-stationary arrival. Otherwise, your model will be wrong, okay? Because when you do non-stationary, you'll have the time that it will be the peak and the time that it will be the low time. So you see how things evolve and how it's different. If you just model as an average, you will not see anything, okay? So just do it. And if you have non-stationary arrival, Don't worry about this page that much. It just give you, basically it's just a way that Arena can handle it. So if you have the non-stationary arrival process, your job is to be able to estimate the rate function. So how fast or the rate that the entity or the part that you are interested in arrive in the system. Okay, usually specified per hours. So let's say that if you have 45 arrival in half an hour, when you specify the rate in Arena, just say 90 per hours. And then Arena will convert that to the inter-arrival time and use exponential distribution to simulate the arrival of each entity based on this rate. Okay, so don't worry about it, like the way that the method that they use, but just remember that Arena can handle it. So if you have non-stationary arrival process, just collect the data as it is, and you can use it in the model. Okay, so the data that we collect, you can see that if it's non-stationary, we don't really look at inter-arrival time that much, but we're gonna look at it in terms of the rate. Okay, how often the entity arrive per time period. It's usually for in an hour. Okay, when we're gonna choose the right distribution, okay, remember using the mean square error and the p-value has to be 0.05 or more. Another thing to look at, we mentioned it already, is whether it's a continuous or discrete distribution. Okay, continuous give you the real value, so it can be the decimal point. A discrete value give you only the integer number. Okay, one of the popular distribution that we see before, some of you use it before too, is a normal distribution. And you can see that normal distribution is symmetric, okay? So each half is equal, so you can fold them together. And you can see that the value that most likely to happen is the mean value right here. And for the extreme value, okay, at the infinite tail, it has very low chance of happening, but it can still happen. And imagine that if it happened, let's say you're modeling the processing time, and it happened at the very extreme value. In this case, it can stall your model, right? Because let's say that usually it takes about 100 seconds to process the entity, but the extreme value you generate is like 10,000 seconds or something. So it's taking too long. So that could happen. So be careful about it. And also the problem about negative value, right? If the mean is small comparing to standard deviation, which means standard deviation is really close to the mean. In this case, there's a chance that you will have negative value, and that could be a problem. In Arena, if you use normal distribution in the model, and let's say in the process time, the delay time, and the value generated is the negative number, it will truncate to zero, okay, automatically. But some of the software may not. Okay, so it may your model may have an error on it. So just keep in mind that you have to be careful about that. I think that's the major concern for the normal distribution, the fact that it has infinite tail. Okay? So moral, sometimes we try to avoid using normal distribution, especially for processing time, because we know that processing time normally not going to go over certain time or lower than certain time. Right? So extreme values are likely to happen. Okay. We go through this briefly so that you can, and then I'll let you take a break. This one is briefly so that you can get familiar yourself with the distribution, how it looks like. Okay, some of them we used it before, right? Triangular. So for triangular, you can see that the most likely could be here, and it's not the same as the average number. Okay, And the good thing about triangular is allow for asymmetry. Okay, so that your distribution doesn't have to be having the same shape on both sides. Okay, and the good thing is it fixed for minimum and maximum. So the number will never go over this boundary. Usually good for processing time. Log normal, you may not be familiar much, but log normal, you can specify the parameter, the mean, and the standard deviation. Same way as normal distribution. Okay. The character of the log normal distribution is that it's positively skewed. Okay. So this means that the value below the mean, okay, the most value that you generated will be below the mean. Okay, higher than. And value cannot fall below 0. So all the number that you generate will be positive number. Okay, and it has infinite tail on the higher end, which means that extreme value can happen. Uniform distribution, already talked about it. We have minimum and maximum. Okay, every value has equal chance of happening. This one is considered as uniform. If we have discrete uniform, you can only get the integer number. This one is exponential distribution. That's what we usually use for interarrival time. And as you can see, the value generated will only be positive value. Okay, you will never get the negative number. And it depends on the software. Sometimes it's specified by the rate, like how many happen in particular time. Okay, in Arena, if we use for the normal situation, we will specify as the interarrival time. Okay, exponential with the mean, okay, not the rate. So the mean is like how long does it take between things to happen. Poisson distribution, just for you to see. Okay, this is also the discrete distribution. So the number is only integer. And it's usually simulated for the number of time that thing will happen in certain time period. Okay. All right. These are some of the distribution that you might see when we fitting the distribution. Okay. Do you have any question? Okay. If not, I'll let you guys take a break for 15 minutes, and then when you come back, we're gonna go back to lab 2B, that we will try to fit the distribution from the data that we have. Okay, so let's take a break for 15 minutes.
Here?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, really? What is it? Yeah, I know. So
ทุกคนมีจะกลับแล้ว
yeah. Yeah.
ก็ส่งให้เพื่อนเลยไม่มีคนดิสโก้มาเลยไม่ซื้อเลยทำอะไรบ้างไม่ทำให้
So this one is like more and then you can get a follow the instruction and this one and this one yeah it's quite easy yeah so that should be yeah the last one is the visual analysis you can try to go through yourself if you don't understand then you let me know because it's just functional how you're going to do it and the last one
ไม่ถึงขนาดนั้นถ้าไม่บอกกับเด็ก ถ้ามีก็ได้ถ้าไม่มีก็ได้ซึ่งถ้าที่สนามบินพอ
Sorry about that. Actually,
เดี๋ยวให้สนุกนะให้สนามบินใส่แบบ
patients of corona.
So I think
Well, that if I go to Cambodia,
and then
and then
I don't
they will look at my
yeah,
passport and
that's-
say, why are you from?
I think that's the problem. So the country that you visit,
All of Australia has already blocked anyone who's from mainland China in the last month.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
Cambodia is like
yeah,
mainland
that's
China
awesome.
2.0 now.
Yeah. So hopefully
Anyway, thank you. I thought you were gonna treat me. Oh, you what? Treat me first. Okay, yeah.
ได้ทำงาน
When you want to
แม่
find,
เดี๋ยวไป
you want to hire, right?
ไม่ไหวปะวันนี้ง่วงมากเลย ติงใช่ไหม
So
สรุปอากาศ